Today, me and my two other friends are going to be surviving 100 days in Minecraft Hardcore on one chunk. We'll be stranded in an empty void with nothing but one chunk. How much will we be able to achieve on this one chunk? Can we even survive? Well, you're gonna have to stick around to the end to find out. Anyways, this is 100 days in Minecraft Hardcore on one chunk, Trios Edition. To start our Trios journey on this one chunk, we began this world like every other world, and that was by chopping down a few trees for wood. Since there were 3 different types of wood on this one chunk already, we all chose to chop down an individual tree just to make the process go a lot quicker. Crafting a crafting table as well as a wooden pickaxe, we waited for the sapling to drop from the tree leaves so we could get some more wood. This was the most important stage of our world so far. If we didn't get a sapling, then the world would be over. But luckily, we got it. The next step of our world was actually to collect some seeds. So we broke all the grass and got a few seeds. We currently had no food source in this world, so we had to rely on seeds to feed our hunger. After getting some seeds, we dug down a little bit and started mining up some cobblestone to get a few upgrades of our tools. After getting everyone some stone pickaxes, we all went back down to the cobblestone layer and mined up some iron and coal. I used some more cobblestone to craft up a stone shovel and then went back underneath the grass layer to collect some extra dirt so then we could go ahead and start expanding out the one chunk, which would give us some extra room for both a house and any other farms that we may need to build in the future. We crafted up some shears and then sheared 2 sheep that spawned down our chunk, which gave us enough wool for 1 bed. Unfortunately, not enough for everyone, so we continued digging up dirt, expanding out the chunk, and we also spent some time shearing the sheep whenever they regained their wool, until eventually the chunk had expanded out a good amount and we also had a total of 3 beds. After sleeping, we spent some time exploring the caves on our one chunk. We mined up a ton of cobblestone and some iron in the process. Some time later, we dug into another cave, which had a zombie spawner inside. This one cave had a ton of mobs inside it, so I had to be really careful with what I was going to be doing, especially since I didn't have a shield, and not only that, I didn't have any food that could heal me if I took any damage, so we weren't in a very good situation right now. After only being down around 2.5 hearts, we successfully fought off all the mobs and we located the 2 chests in the spawner room. Inside the 2 chests were a ton of bones, a golden apple, and a few crop items such as pumpkin, melon, potato, and carrot seeds. Also, apparently while looting this cave, Aloys, this person here, had also mined up a ton of coal and iron. Yeah, I think that's going to last us a very long time. We went back up to the surface of our chunk and then started smelting the iron that we had mined up. And we also used the bones that we got from not too long ago, turned those into bone meal, so then we could get our very first bits of food. Bone mealing the wheat so we could breed some animals, and we also bone mealed some potatoes, which we would use for our food source. For the rest of the day, we worked on a few smaller projects around the one chunk, such as placing some trapdoors so animals couldn't go down into our mines, and we also started a much bigger farm to allow for more food to be made. We were making really good progress very quickly. Something really annoying happened on days 3 to 4. I forgot to record. However, let me go ahead and show you exactly what we got up to on these days. We spent a large portion of the time mining a staircase down through the chunk. This took us a very long time since we only had stone and wooden pickaxes to make our way down with. Well, technically, I did have an iron pickaxe, but that was used so we could mine up things such as diamonds and other ores. During this time, we actually got quite a few good ores, such as iron, gold, lapis, redstone, but not only that, we also managed to get 14 diamonds. We managed to get all these diamonds by pretty much just looking off the edge of this one chunk. When looking over the edge, you can see a ton of ores. When I say a ton of ores, I mean a ton. You can see so many diamonds off the side of the edge, and that's pretty much how we got all of our diamonds. It was time to start working towards a project that would take quite a few days to complete, especially since, once again, we didn't have the best tools that existed. A mob farm would be extremely useful in this one chunk, as it would be a great way to obtain useful materials to help us progress through this world, and from personal experiences with building up this farm, we were going to require a ton of materials to actually build it. So back into the mines we went, both strip mining for materials such as iron, and also making sure to collect all the cobblestone in the process, which would later on be used to build up this farm. Oh yeah, also to prove we haven't spawned any iron in as well, here's us mining up all the iron that we had found during these few days. Throughout these days, we just spent a whole lot of time strip mining and collecting a ton of cobblestone. So now that we had collected all the materials that we were going to need for this mob farm, it was time to start putting it to use and start building up the mob farm. We put all the spare materials in a chest up at the top of the surface, and then we just started building up this mob farm. We've actually built this mob farm a couple of times, an example of which was in our 100 days on 1 block series. Since the item collection was honestly taking a whole lot longer than I originally thought it would, I went back up to the surface on my own and then just started building up the mob farm with the materials that we already had, and while I was doing that, my other 2 friends stayed down in the mines collecting more materials. At one point, I got one of my friends to come up and help me build the mob farm, but they ended up placing a few blocks and then just going AFK. Alright, I'm taking new friend applications. Comment down below why you should be a part of this trio series. Just kidding. Or am I? But now that we had built up the mob farm, we had another task to complete, and that was to light up all the caves on the 1 chunk to improve the spawn rates of the farm. But now that was all done, we finally had a mob farm that could now produce us a good amount of items, and now that we had this mob farm, we could probably make a whole lot more progress as well. But now that we had built up a mob farm, it was time to start building some better farms. We currently have a small sugarcane farm, a small cactus farm, as well as some wheat, potato, and carrot farms, but it was time to put all of our materials together and make a better farm for all of these items, starting off with a better sugarcane farm. The sugarcane farm was a pretty normal standard sugarcane farm. It consisted of 1 row of water, then 2 rows of dirt, followed by another row of water. You've probably seen this farm a lot. It's a pretty simple sugarcane design, nothing too special, but once we did the sugarcane farm, we then moved on to making a better cactus farm, which was also automatic technically, but we didn't have hoppers to collect everything obviously because we're not that rich on this 1 chunk. Just to clarify, this cactus farm is somewhat automatic because of the fences. You see, when a cactus grows next to a block, in this case the fence, it breaks, automatically farming the crop quite easily. And then finally, after making a better cactus farm, it was time to put everything once again together and build a better wheat, potato, and carrot farm. To start off this wheat, potato, and carrot farm, we first had to remove the old farm, doing so by simply collecting all the crops that had already grown from our old farm. Then tilled some land and planted all the seeds back into the ground, ready to grow some more crops. And after all that, we had way better farms to produce us more farming items for whenever we would need it later on in this world. If you recall from a few days ago, we actually found a mob spawner inside one of the caves underneath our 1 chunk, and we wanted to turn this mob spawner into another grinder. So when one person was using the mob farm, another person could start farming the mob spawner, if that makes any sense. We technically didn't really have too much of a reason to build this farm, but I feel like it was a good way to make use of this spawner. We can use it for any extra XP and whatever else we may need the zombie spawner for. So using some tools, we started breaking a ton of blocks around the spawner and making a small room around it so the mobs could spawn, and then they would flow down on the water where they could then be eliminated by whoever's grinding the spawner in the time. Whenever we aren't using this mob spawner, we're also going to place torches on the spawner to prevent zombies from spawning down here. The reason for this was to prevent it from filling up the mob cap, lowering the rate of the mob grinder on the surface of our chunk. Maybe this was a waste of our time. I don't know. I don't know if this actually works, but I guess if we're doing something wrong, then let us know down below. And after building a new mob spawner, some better farms, and turning our mob spawner into a grinder, it was time to start building up a house. But before we could do that, we had to collect some materials for a house. We started breaking down all the trees, planting more saplings for more trees, collecting a ton more cobblestone, or whatever materials that we may need to build this house. We spent a couple of days just collecting a ton of materials, finding whatever we may need, so we could then in the future build our house whenever we really felt like it. But to change things up a little bit, it's time to change dimensions and start going into the nether. But to do that, we had to get a nether portal. But how do we get obsidian on 1 chunk? Well, to do such a thing, we had to turn all our lava pools into obsidian through placing water on top of the lava and then breaking that obsidian with our diamond pickaxe. But where do we find these lava sources? Well, a few days ago, when looking through all the caves, we managed to find all these lava pools that would provide us with the necessary amount of obsidian to build up the nether portal. I used a diamond pickaxe to mine up all the obsidian, which would be about 10 obsidian for the entire nether portal. And after breaking all the obsidian, it was time to go into the nether. We built up the portal and then all went through, and this is our nether dimension. But exploring this new dimension, we can actually see that there's each individual biome packed into this one chunk. The crimson biome, which comes with all the items you would find in the crimson biome, the most important being the wood, the warped forest biome, which also had everything you would need, also a few other biomes in each of the other corners of this chunk. It was pretty cool. As you can see, this nether is on one chunk as well, which technically makes this a whole lot more dangerous, because with one chunk in this nether, that means a whole lot of mobs are going to be spawning on this one chunk. So the first thing that we had to do was go around and start spawn proofing the nether, because otherwise we may be at risk in this world. We had to be really careful in this nether spawn proofing stage, I guess you can call it, because at any moment a mob could just come up and attack us and we would be dead. So being extremely careful, we slowly made our way through the nether, spawn proofing whatever we could until we got to the nether fortress stage of the nether. This is where spawners were placed down so a ton of mobs could spawn, such as blazes and piglins and other mobs like that. So we had to be really careful in the nether fortress. But now that we were here, we could actually start getting some blaze rods, so maybe we could make some Eye of Ender and visit the end later on. So everyone just started killing all the blazes for blaze rods, and maybe sometime in the future we could also turn one of these blaze spawners into a grinder on its own as well. If you guys would like to see that, let me know in the comments down below. But after a little while, we actually managed to get all the blaze rods that we would probably need in the future, and that includes blaze rods for any potions that we may need in the future as well. And since a ton of mobs spawn on this one chunk, and I think it would be really easy to do, we decided to make a gold farm, because gold can be very useful. This was going to be the most scuffed gold farm that you'll probably ever see on YouTube. Pretty much all we really needed to do was build out a platform on the side of the one chunk, and then attack one of the piglins, and then just run onto the platform, and there you go. You pretty much have a gold farm as it is. Before we could even build this gold farm, however, we needed to mine up a ton of nether brick blocks from the nether fortress level of the nether chunk. Since there were no piglin spawners on this island, we had to rely on the mobs spawning on the nether brick and then attacking them so the piglins would run after us, where we would then lure them into a hole and then attack them, which would hopefully get us a ton of gold. That's the goal, at least. To be honest with you, we didn't even know if this would work. So we got to work building out this platform, and then it was time to test out this farm. Started using it for a little bit. We could also use this gold later on for trading with piglins up on the top of our one chunk if any ended up spawning. And after attempting a few different ways to get this to work, it was like really bad. So instead, we went back to the overworld, and it was finally time to start building up our brand new house. And as always, we got Alois to build the house because she's just the best builder out of all of us. I mean, I can't build myself, and I'm pretty sure Wool can't either. I mean, otherwise he probably would have asked to build it. I don't know. Maybe we should get him to build. If you want to see Will build in the next 100 days, then I don't know, let us know as well. But slowly building up this house, we were making some pretty good progress, and the house was starting to look pretty good. Also, this house took quite a lot longer than we may have thought it would have taken, because all the materials that we had was unfortunately not enough to complete the entire house. Because of the limited materials on this one chunk, we also had to continue planting new trees and letting them grow and stuff like that, so we could get the extra materials that we would need. All these small details caused the build time to take a whole lot longer than it probably would have had to. But to save everybody's time, I'm just going to show you what the house looks like right now. This is the end product of the house. I think it looks pretty cool. It's a pretty good house build, especially considering we have a limited amount of items on this one chunk. We spent a little bit of time moving everything into the house, such as our furnaces and chests, just so we could make the surface of the one chunk a little cleaner. But now that that we've done all that, it was time to start getting some upgrades for our armor. We needed to go mining once again to get materials so everyone can get full armor, whether it's iron or diamond. But considering we're on one chunk, I don't think there's going to be enough diamonds for everyone to get diamond armor, so we're just gonna have to find out. We dug down into the mines and started mining up all the ores we could find. That included a ton of diamonds, iron, and any other ore that we would come across. We just spent a ton of time mining in general. We needed to get a ton of upgrades, and the only way of doing this was by mining and getting the ores ourselves. However, getting closer to the bottom of the one chunk, we actually found something insane. We found a room full of iron. This was kind of like a secret room of treasure on this one chunk. This had a ton of iron, including a raw iron block, but that's not even the craziest part, because once we broke this raw iron block, it was a tunnel down to an end portal. So we now had access to go to the end whenever we really wanted to, which was going to be huge for this world. After mining for quite a long time and smelting all the iron, we started to upgrade our tools. We crafted a ton of armor and tools, and there we go. We've pretty much upgraded ourselves, and we should now be able to survive anything that comes and attacks us. This is where things get kind of crazy, because we need 12 ender pearls to actually light the portal, and that requires endermen to actually get the ender pearls. But how do we get endermen? Well, that is another task that we were just about to start, because otherwise we can't even visit the end. But this task is going to take a very, very long time, considering endermen don't always spawn. The only real idea that we had to get ender pearls was to build up a massive platform and then wait for mobs to spawn, and then hopefully those mobs would end up being endermen. And then on top of that, we also had to hope that the endermen would drop their ender pearls. We used a ton of cobblestone to build out this massive platform once again, and now all we had to do was just wait for it to turn nighttime. Many nights passed, and after a very, very long time, we got all the ender pearls that we needed. And now we could locate the end portal once again and light it so we could go and make our way into the end. It was finally time to fight off the main boss of these 100 days, the Ender Dragon. We crafted all the Eyes of Ender, started placing it into the portal, and then we all jumped through, and now we were in the end, ready to defeat the dragon. We all pillared up and used our water buckets to break all the crystals, and then we could finally start attacking the dragon. You guys have seen these dragon fights many times, so I think we can just speed this process up. We hit the dragon a ton, and then eventually we took out the dragon once and for all. We collected the XP and the egg, and then we could make our way to the outer end islands by visiting the end gateway and pearling through. Now that we're in the outer end islands, it was time to start looking for some end cities so we could get everyone an elytra. This was going to be a long journey, because running around looking for end cities isn't the easiest task. Sometimes you can be extremely lucky, and on other occasions, it may take you a very, very long time just to find one. And another reason for us spending so much time in the outer end islands is because in the end cities, you could also get a ton of ores such as diamonds and iron, as well as some overpowered armor and tools. Our hopes by raiding a ton of end cities was so we could get stacked and not have to worry about the limited amount of rare items we could get on our one chunk. The rare items were useful, but for now, the main focus was getting everyone their elytras. We looted each end city, getting everyone elytras, and then we continued looting more end cities, looking for other loot and shulkers as well. Also, since we brought some wood with us to the end, we could easily craft shulker boxes, which we could then use to store more loot and bring back all this loot back to our one chunk once we're done in the end. Also, while we looted the end cities, we also collected some obsidian from the bottom of the end ships, which when returning back home, we used to craft an enchant table with some of the extra diamonds that we had. And by using the lapis we had collected from the mining session earlier on, everybody upgraded their gear a whole lot more. We spent a whole lot of this day preparing for one final task of these 100 days. And since we were getting close to the end of these 100 days, we wanted to be as prepared as possible, because it would honestly suck dying on the final day. Imagine that. We enchanted all of our gear, we crafted better gear using the ores from the end cities, and we also used some of the bows from the bow drops in the mob farm as a way to get ourselves some bows to fight the final thing of these 100 days. That was kind of a mouthful, but hopefully you understand. because now, since we had a couple days left in this world, we went back to the nether and decided to try and grind out some more wither skeleton skulls, since there was a wither skeleton spawner in the bottom of the nether fortress. Our hopes in doing this was maybe, just maybe, with just a small amount of time that we had left in this world, we could possibly get 3 wither skulls to hopefully fight the wither. We kept grinding out all the wither skeletons in hope for these skulls, and to our surprise, we managed to get all 3 skulls ready to fight off the wither on the final day. Talking about perfect timing. So for day 100, we went back to the bottom of our chunk, went through the end portal down there, and now we were back in the end. And to make this fight a little easier, we dug a tunnel through and underneath the end island. Then we dug out a little room and spawned the wither. This was it. It was the final boss fight of these 100 days, and it was against the wither. If we all died, all the 99 of the previous days would have been for nothing. We all attacked the wither, damaging as much as we could until we'd done it. The wither fight was over and we managed to get the nether star. So we went back to the overworld on our 1 chunk for the very last time of these 100 days and collected all the materials to go ahead and craft a beacon. We have it. We got a beacon on 1 chunk in Minecraft Hardcore. And that's it. That's 100 days in Minecraft Hardcore on 1 chunk. If you enjoyed this trios video, then you'll definitely enjoy this one next.